My name is Ashley Green. This presentation was created during my Capstone 2 course with my team at the time, Alexandria Anderson and Alex Denovan. Our group was told to identify a problem and work toward the solution of said problem. We chose to address gender and sexuality-based bullying throughout the Clark County School District of Nevada. In this presentation, we focus specifically on how including gender and sexual orientation awareness in health education and/or sex education courses can greatly reduce gender and sexuality-related bullying. The intended audience for this presentation was originally the Curriculum and Professional Development Division of Nevada's Clark County School District. According to the Clark County School District website, as of 2018, the Clark County School District covers an estimated population of 2.2 million people. There are 336 schools within this district, and altogether it's estimated the total number of students within the school district is about 330,000. According to the Nevada Division of Public and Behavioral Health website, out of these 330,000 students, an estimated 9.8% identifies as LGBTQIA+. Research suggests there is an overwhelming lack of safety from bullying for LGBTQIA+ youth in American schools. LGBTQIA+ students are disproportionately at risk of victimization, including harassment, assault, and exclusion based on their sexual orientation, gender identity, and how they express their gender. As shown in the graphic, LGBTQIA+ students report a high frequency of verbal harassment based on their sexual orientation and gender expression. Studies show the consequences of bullying can include negative impacts on the mental health and the academic performance of LGBTQIA+ students. Although studies have shown staff and teacher support of LGBT+ students has increased over the years, the lack of positive inclusion of resources related to LGBT+ students within the curriculum has not shown drastic improvement. The provided graph displays the plateau of positive inclusion of LGBT+ resources within a school curriculum and the lack of anti-bullying policy progression. Research finds that, in general, American middle and high schools host unsafe and unsupportive climates for LGBT+ youth. 85% of LGBT+ students were verbally harassed at school in the past year. Studies have also found when schools have policies that prohibit discrimination and bullying based on sexual orientation and gender identity, bullying is significantly reduced. While bullying is not limited to sexual orientation and gender identity issues, it is more common for LGBT+ youth to be victimized in schools. Bullying currently has limited consequences in many school districts. In some schools, bullying is monitored. If it's determined the observed bullying has gone too far, bullies often face minimal consequences, like after-school detention or a suspension from certain class activities. Bullying prevention is rarely the focus of anti-bullying policies. In an effort to take a step further with anti-bullying policies, some schools have developed organizations or clubs addressing sexual orientation and gender identity-specific issues. Many students recognize them as gay-straight alliance clubs. Despite the effort, these clubs are oftentimes limiting in that they rarely are able to significantly impact anti-bullying policies. There's a disconnect between how bullying is currently handled and how it should be handled to better prevent and eliminate the problem of bullying as a whole. Many school policies focusing on sexual orientation and gender identity-based bullying possess three debilitating limitations: individualizing, essentializing, and pathologizing. The, quote, simplification and individualization of gender and sexual orientation bullying often exists in the very culture of a school. Oftentimes, instances of gender and sexual orientation-related bullying are dealt with on a case-by-case basis rather than taking a zero-stance policy, which effectively renders any established bullying policy void. This is an example of individualizing, which directly feeds into essentializing, or the, quote, reductive understanding of LGBT plus identities. Reductive understanding in relation to LGBT plus bullying refers to the concept of LGBT plus identities viewed as fundamentally different to that of heterosexual or cisgender identities, rather than accepting LGBT plus identities just as fully shaped and understood as those of their heterosexual and cisgendered peers. Essentializing reduces the identities of LGBT plus students so much so that the end result does not accurately reflect the complexity of an LGBTQIA plus identity. These two limitations, individualizing and essentializing, then become the foundation of pathologizing, or creating a narrative that students who identify as LGBT plus are, quote, inherent victims. Photos, such as the one displayed here, are representative of pathologizing. It encapsulates the experience of LGBTQIA plus individuals as tragic in nature. Bullying policies that assert students who identify as lesbian, gay, bisexual, trans, or queer will be bullied or will attempt suicide due to bullying and must therefore exist, twist the issue of LGBTQIA plus bullying to reflect the idea that members of this community are at fault for their own mistreatment. Although policies are implemented with hopes of subduing or eliminating bullying focused on gender and sexual orientation, they often cause more harm than good. Research indicates factors contributing to gender and sexuality-related bullying include a widespread misunderstanding of the differences between gender and sexuality, as well as general lack of knowledge about the gender spectrum. These concepts are not fully addressed in current health education courses within the Clark County School District. The three main sex education topics covered in secondary level learning throughout the Clark County School District are the human reproductive system, AIDS and other communicable diseases, and sexual responsibility. Studies have shown that when schools have an availability of sexual orientation and gender identity-focused information and resources, the outcome is reduced bullying. We recommend providing both information and resources by including sexual orientation and gender identity education in current secondary level sex education curriculum in order to reduce gender and sexuality-related bullying at secondary level schools in the Clark County School District. We propose a fourth topic is included, titled Sex and Gender. This facet of the curriculum will address the differences between gender and sexuality, explain the gender spectrum, and define various sexual orientations. This proposed update is part of the TIE curriculum. TIE, or Time for Inclusive Education, is a Scottish charity created in 2018 to combat homophobia, biphobia, and transphobia in schools through LGBT inclusive education. They have developed a sexual orientation and gender identity curriculum and made it free to the public. The curriculum includes downloadable classroom materials and resources, as well as teacher training PowerPoints, which explain how teachers should utilize the provided materials and lesson plans. Implementing this curriculum will be absolutely free of cost. As the fifth largest school district in the country, Clark County School District has a statistically higher chance for bullying. By redesigning the curriculum with the inclusion of TIE, Clark County School District will show its support for diversity and inclusive education while combating bullying and creating safer school environments throughout the district. Inclusive curriculum positively affects students within the LGBTQIA+ community. Through educating the school population as a whole on LGBT+ issues, students who identify as belonging to this community are able to feel safer and more supported within their school environment. According to GLSEN, LGBT+ students have reported feeling safer in schools where an inclusive curriculum exists. GLSEN also reports that transgender and gender nonconforming students who attend schools with inclusive policies face less discrimination and are more engaged in their courses. Inclusive sex education focuses on the development and understanding of gender and sex within the LGBT+ student population, as well as the heterosexual cisgender student population. This inclusion not only makes LGBT+ students feel more welcomed and more safe at school, but also provides support to anti-bullying framework. Conversation revolving around complexities of identity provide the opportunity for LGBT+ students and their heterosexual cisgender peers to create a space that allows for the representation of all. As educators, it's our job to reevaluate our classrooms and our teaching methods and to constantly strive toward creating spaces which support and welcome every single student. With inclusive curriculum, we are another step closer to fulfilling that ultimate goal.